everybody, it's David again out at Reptile Gardens here for another special edition of David Teaches Stuff. Now I know Harmony here has some questions for me, so I will let you take it away.
Alright, well, we know you have thousands and thousands of different plants each year. Some people wanted to know, are any of these plants like dual usage? So like they're beautiful, but do we also use them to feed our animals or medicinal purposes or anything of that nature?
Gotcha. That's a really good question, and that is actually a question I get quite often. So the best way to answer that is yes, we do grow certain things for the animals. For instance, I'll say we grow pumpkins and squash and watermelon. So I don't know if people have been out here and kind of in the corners of our grounds, you can see we have pumpkin patches. And what we do with those is we grow them throughout the summer, and then early fall we'll use them as decor around the grounds or in the gift shop. And then once we take down the decorations, it's time to feed those out. So then yes, we do all those pumpkins, watermelon, squash, the tortoises love them. I think there's actually been times where we've given some for the parrots too. Yep. Actually, so yeah, that would be the only thing that we do is kind of our fall harvest of gourds and the watermelon. People have asked before if we grow other things for the animals in our flower beds, and the easiest way to say that is no, because being is that we are trying to focus on the botanical garden aspect in the garden department. That means we use a lot of fertilizers, we use a lot of pesticides, so that every guest that comes out to Reptile Gardens gets to see the plants in their full glory. You know, so we wouldn't want to use pesticides, fertilizers on those plants and then feed them to the animals. So
yeah. Speaking of fertilizers, you've got to have some tricks of keeping the grass beautiful, the flowers beautiful. What are some fertilizers you use, or what times of years do you do it? Like, what's your strategy there?
So that's another good question, and that actually will vary depending on each year. For instance, we'll take 2020 year. We had a massive hailstorm right at the beginning of the year, right after we had finished. I'm sure you remember that one. We had that massive hailstorm, and it was literally just a couple weeks after we had planted all of our flower beds. So what we had to do was do some heavy fertilizing right after that storm. And what we like to use is a product called a Jack's fertilizer. It's an all-purpose fertilizer. It's what all the professionals use. And it's you can get that anywhere in town here. We get ours from Jolly Lane Greenhouse. Now how often, like I said, varies. In a normal season where we wouldn't have mass destruction with hail, we would do it probably 4 times a season. Depending on the plant though, certain plants take a lot more food. For instance, petunias. Very, very basic plant, very, very readily available, but they're one of the highest feeders of plants. They take a lot of fertilizer. People usually ask why our petunias are always in such full bloom, and it's because of the amount of fertilizer we use. Another product that we do use, and this is another professional grade fertilizer, basically it's just a really heavy dose of iron. So it's called chelated micronutrients. And that is something you always want to use if your plants are starting to yellow.
Okay.
So a sure sign that your plant needs more food is if the leaves are starting to yellow, or if it's just not producing a lot of flowers. It needs a lot more iron.
And then one final question we have, this is more of a personal one for me, but I've always wanted to keep an herb garden in my house, but I've always seemed to have hit or miss when it comes to the plants. Do you have any tips or tricks for anyone who's trying to grow a small herb garden indoors?
Absolutely. An herb garden is a really good thing to start with, you know. A lot of people will just go right out and do like a big garden with tomatoes and stuff like that. That's a little different than with herbs. Herbs you can do in your house. You can do them in a little windowsill. And the biggest thing with herbs and growing indoors is just remembering that there's not as much moisture in the air as there would be outside. So when it comes to herbs, I like to, rather than just filling the pot with water or watering them heavily, use maybe a spray bottle just to lightly mist, because you definitely don't want herbs especially like rosemary or thyme, you don't want those to get too wet, or else they just will not grow. They like to, they're very drought tolerant, and rosemary and thyme is something that, you know, down in the south they grow as hedges. It gets huge down there. They love dry, they love hot. Other herbs such as maybe chives, basil, those take a little bit more water. And another key to keeping your herbs healthy is trimming them back. You know, the more you trim back, the fuller and healthier the plant will get. For instance, you know, chives, there's a really good example there. The more you cut those chives, the more they're going to grow. It's just like mowing your lawn. You know, every time you mow your lawn, it's going to grow back faster and thicker. So it's kind of the same rule with certain herbs. But kind of a rule of thumb for all herbs is don't let them get too wet. They like to dry out. That keeps the roots healthier. If you do intermediate waterings, then the plants have time to grow strong roots, and they're not just sitting in soapy water.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That sounds like helped me a lot. So
Well, I hope so.
Hopefully
I
in a
hope
couple
so.
months I'll have a nice garden to show you.
And I'm gonna ask how your garden grows. So, is there anything else you were wondering, or that you need to be taught?
Nope, I think we're good for now.
I like
I'm
doing
sure
this.
I'll have more.
I hope you do, because I really like teaching stuff. I want everyone to know that I do know a few things out here at Reptile Gardens, but it's only the plants. Really, so, well, all right, Harmony, well, this is always fun. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
We'll talk to you soon.